Hi there. Just a kind of relatively short video about a kind of sexism row, um, which has been reported on today about the ECB. Kind of sports reporter Elizabeth Ammon and ex-women's cricketer and commentator on Test Match Special Alex Hartley both have criticised the ECB for announcing the sacking of Brendan McCollum as Test coach um, on a day where they were playing their historic Test match against England. Were playing the historic Test match against India at Lords, and it just got me thinking about the merits of this argument and women's cricket in England in general, and all the stuff that go with it. Now, firstly, I would say that the profile of England women cricket has kind of risen massively. I think all but one of my friends actually have attended women's games. One of the other day took kind of a sickie to watch the England India women's test, day one of the England women's test match. So these are not guys who are necessarily, right on kind of woke guys. But obviously, the profile of the game has has kind of moved in an upward trajectory at a kind of alarming rate. So you have to bear that in mind, and the ECB are promoting it. So it's in that context you have to look at this. On the other hand, it is still a game which is vastly inferior to the men's game. The speed of the bowlers, the ground fielding, the batting. Now, if you watch, say, a male fielder, even a run-of-the-mill county pro, he can pick up a ball and throw it in one fell swoop, rather than going down in installments. Picking up the ball like it's a shot put and aiming it somewhere towards the keeper. I think there's things like that you do notice. Now, in countries like India, there does seem to be a real a kind of elite professional approach to the women's game. I think here it is more an avenue for politics, and the results don't tend to matter that much. I don't think I've seen a men's test side take losing so lightly as the women's side did today. Someone doing a Rubik's cube, someone throwing shirts into the audience. I think for the people pushing English women's cricket, it's just about participation, um, a kind of what they see as a fair wage, and exposure. And it doesn't matter if they win or lose. I think, which is very different to the Indian or Australian approach in women's cricket. I think also because in England is a far more kind of politically correct country than India. Um, you're able to get away with a lot of mediocre stuff here as a women's cricketer, and I must say, as a women's pundit. So if you were to take um, kind of, it would be impossible for a man who was on the radio. I can do it, but someone who's on the radio or television to critique a woman cricketer. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't say that person can't throw properly or isn't bowling quick enough, or they certainly couldn't say they were out of shape, even though a lot of them are. So if you compare some people are, you're a 20 odd year old woman and you've got your belly hanging out and your bum hanging out. That is not an elite level sports person. Now, that's not being sexist, because if you look at women's tennis players, women sprinters, women rowers, women footballers, look at the lionesses. They were all as fit as a butcher's dog. They all look like they could take part in the Olympics as athletes. Women's cricketers don't look like that. So these critiques you could not make as a man on television, or you could make them, but you'd get sacked. I think it's probably in somewhere like India, you could probably kind of tell the truth more about it. And I think this also goes. This is also the case for women pundits. So if you take a women pundit like Mel Jones, she's an Australian, former Australian captain. She is a very good pundit because she's a good pundit, not because she's a woman. If you take the ones that we have, um, Alex Hartley isn't a very good pundit. Doesn't add any kind of analytical skills. Doesn't have any analytical skills. She has actually played the game, but doesn't bring any of that kind of tactical nous into her commentary, and has kind of got this role of being a kind of gobby, Larry person, as a kind of counterweight to some kind of, I don't know, kind of southern droll middle class person. So it's a kind of a good counterweight in that sense. But actually, if you take away the superficial stuff and look at just um, analysis, she's not very good. And actually, I think she came really got more attention for a comment she made during the Ashes about a non-cricketing issue than she did about cricket. I think she was telling Dan Norcross that she was on her period, and that made more headlines than anything she said about cricket. So it it's a kind of avenue really for um, getting some kind of political point across, rather than an elite sport in this country, I would say. Um, and uh, obviously, if anyone questions that who's on telly or on radio, they'd be shut down or sacked, so they can't do it. Um, so that I think that's the issue. What that means is, and I think this is kind of the important point, it does make for very kind of entitled, unpleasant people in the women's game, and they do think, I don't know, they act as if that the women's game is where it is, on its own strength, and hasn't been promoted or over promoted by the ECB. Um, it's like kind of a willful ignorance there, and the comments from, say, Alex Hartley and Elizabeth Amon today are kind of further proof of that. They wanted England to delay announcing the departure of their manager um, because they were playing cricket. I wonder if England should have delayed their game against Norway because of it, and let the FIFA World Cup, the most kind of the biggest sporting competition in the world, take a back step to this historic test match between England and India that even the players that are playing in it weren't watching. Um, should we have some kind of um, kind of Amish situation or Sabbath every time the England women play cricket?